Good morning. Great morning. Wonderful morning. Spectacular morning. Outstanding morning. Magnificent morning. Oh, yes. Again, the beautiful reminder that we get to choose. You get to choose. I get to choose. We always have a choice. Write that in your notes. I always have a choice. You can never write that enough. And it's true. You always have a choice. And what is that choice? The choice is how you're going to think. Remember, you don't become what you think about most of the time. You become how you're thinking most of the time. And you're the one that gets to embed within you the patterns of thought. If you don't like the ones that are there, you can remove them, you can replace them. But see, this is where your greatest power comes into play. Your ability to accept or reject ideas, to originate ideas. And with that power, if used, you'll be able to make significant shifts in your life. And when I say significant, yes, I'm talking majorly significant. That is, provided you make significant changes inside. You notice how there's a law that was just shared there. Your outer world, whatever that is a reflection of what's happening in your inner world. Change what's in your inner world, and the outer world will change in exact proportion to the changes you've made inside. See, that's what you have in you. That's the power that you have access to. It's not a matter of whether or not you've had that access. It's a matter of whether or not you've become aware of it and whether or not you're using it. So use it as if your life depends on it. You know why? Because it freaking does. It totally does. All right, so we've been diving into studying the Master Key System by Charles Haanel, this beautiful gem, of which has a lot of information. But remember, this information, this knowledge, it's not power. What's in this book will not help you at all if all you do is collect it, if you just read it, memorize it. No, no amount of reading, no amount of memorization is ever going to help you to make changes in your life. See, it's through the application of what's within this book that it will help you. And that's the same for everything. You can think in terms of knowledge in general. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. The only way it becomes power is when it's used. And that's what we are hoping that you grab onto and use in your life. We hope that as you go through these short half-hour calls, that throughout the day after the call, you implement and use it throughout your day. See, that's when the change will happen. Not until you do that, by the way. So make sure that you do use and apply this. Okay. Now, you should definitely have with you a goal card. This card that you can write down your ideal, your goal, or how you would love your life to be. Now, with that in mind, yes, this is a really good tool, but remember, we don't manifest what we've written down on a goal card. We don't manifest what's on the vision board. We don't manifest even affirmations. We manifest how we feel about these things. See, you've got to fall in love with the idea. So if you use this as a tool, as a reminder of something that you would love, and if you stay locked into it, you know what'll happen? This will start taking shape in your outer world. It'll be just exactly as Neville Goddard shared. He says, when you fuse with a state, it becomes your workshop, your home, the lens from which you view the world. And he says, if you are observant, provided you have done that, you will see outer reality taking shape upon the model of your imagination. Now, I want you to notice, he says, once you fuse with the state, see, that's becoming one with the ideal. That's you loving it. That's you being loyal to the unseen reality. And through that loyalty, the externalization will happen. And it will happen according to law. That's one thing that you don't have to concern yourself with, which is really cool as well. All right, so you ready? Let's dive into this and step into where we left off yesterday. Here we go. Here, We are on page 270 in this book. If you don't have this version of this book, get it. Click on the link that we provide you to go get it, or reach out to us. We'll share with you where to get it. He says, wealth should never be desired as an end, but simply as a means of accomplishing an end. Wealth, riches, money should never be desired as an end. So, in other words, don't chase money for the sake of having money. Let it serve a purpose that inspires you. That's what's being said here. Let the money serve a purpose that inspires you. Success is contingent upon a higher ideal than the mere accumulation of riches. And he who aspires to such success must formulate an ideal for which he, she is willing to strive. Now, again, grab onto what he's saying here. Remember, this is information that will help you to attract a lot more money into your life if you use it. Because most people, they, again, set their goal based on the money being an end. No, it doesn't work that way. The people who are wealthy, who have a lot of money in their account, they're like this. They think that way. And this is what we're wanting you to see in you. This is how we are guiding you to think. Remember, you don't become what you think about most of the time. You become how you're thinking most of the time. So here, when it comes to the wealth that you seek, don't say, I want to be rich. Instead, what you want to do is say something, I want to build something, a healing center, or whatever it is that you want to do that transforms lives. And I need $2 million to do that. See, this is where you're locking into it, where you're locking into a purpose. And see, what will happen because you fall in love with the idea, you'll start seeing that. You'll start seeing opportunities that you haven't seen before. You'll start seeing doors open. But only if you lock into that state. And then another way you can apply this is by asking really powerful questions. So remember, we're talking about how wealth should never be desired as an end. So you can ask this question, what would I do if I had that wealth today? Now, I want you to notice what happens in your mind. What would I do with the wealth if I had it right now, right here at this moment? What starts to happen? You start to imagine things. Now, what happens here is when you ask that question, this forces, now pay attention to this, this forces you to define your higher ideal. And that's what's being pointed out to. What it forces you to point out what really matters to you. Now, I know I said force, but really it's not. It actually opens it up and brings it to you. So let's go over this again one more time. Wealth should never be desired as an end, but simply as a means of accomplishing an end. Success is contingent upon a higher ideal than the mere accumulation of riches, and he, she who aspires to such success must formulate an ideal for which he or she is willing to strive. In other words, you've got to have a deep purpose that's personal in order for it to happen. I shared this yesterday about an essay written by Dr. Albert Ian Gray and how he talks about how important it is for you to have a deep purpose. Not something that's shallow, not something like, oh, I'm doing this for my kids, for my family. I know that that's a really good thing, but that's not enough to drive you to move forward in a big way to attract the wealth into your life. It's got to be something more than that. Now, let's go further. With such an ideal in mind, the ways and means can and will be provided. Now, I want you to notice how he's pointing out a state. Once you're in a state, once such an ideal is in mind, because that's what that means. Once you're one with it, what will happen is that the ways and means will show up. The how will appear. All of you write this in your notes. How is none of my business. And unfortunately, many people have the habit of, but I need to know how. I need to know how. Have you ever noticed that when you do that, if you're doing that before you make a committed decision for whatever it is that you're wanting to do, isn't it interesting how whenever that is the focus, how most of the time you end up talking yourself out of it? That sucks. But you know what I'm talking about, right? And that's a habit that a lot of people have. How is none of your business? See, that's the whole point. Bob Proctor would talk about this. You don't know how. That's the whole point. Your job is to discover how. So if you want to attract a massive amount of wealth into your life, more than you've ever had, which means it's something you don't understand, what you've got to do is lock into it. Fall in love with the idea. And from there, the ways and means can and will be provided. But the mistake must not be made of substituting the means for an end. There must be a definite fixed purpose, an ideal. So you've got to know what you want. You've got to be clear with it. Write this in your notes. Clarity gives me power. The clearer you are with your purpose, the clearer you are with how you would love things to be, and providing you are not substituting the means for an end, the quicker the outcome will appear in your life. Now think about that. But now, most importantly, ask yourself, well, how can I use this? So in other words, don't confuse the means with an end. Don't confuse it that way. That's, again, a habit that the overwhelming majority of us have stepped into. Understand that once your vision, that's what he's talking about here, it's clear, the money, the people, the opportunities, they'll show up. But never mistake the tools for the purpose. Don't mistake the tools for the purpose. Now, before we move further, if you've been watching the beginning of this call live, we're going to cut it out. But if you'd love to dive into this and participate in the rest of these calls, go to elevitality.com and register for Master Your Mind.